The winning streak against the National Masters hasn't stopped yet. As you can see, I'm playing against a National Master and apparently I already played him 3 times. I lost twice and won once. In this game I'm playing as white and as you probably know I'm an e4 player, so I played e4 obviously, and my opponent replied with the move knight on f6. Now, knight on f6 is a playable move, is the Aliokin defense, and it is actually pretty good if you know your stuff. But if you are a beginner, I highly suggest you not to play this opening because you have to move the same piece more times in the opening and you really need to know your theory and play positional chess too. So in this position the most played move and the best is e5, attacking the knight, so you have to waste another time. You might think he played knight on d5, which is basically the only played move, but it's not. There is actually another move, which I discovered yesterday when I played this guy, which is knight on g8. Knight on g8 is theory. Now, obviously, him being a national master is going to be a much better than me with theory, so I need to be pretty careful. Although it's not really high rated, so that make me think that he's just pretty strong with long times. But when he has a few minutes, he's probably not going to play that well. Now, since he lost the time, he lost the time, I played d4 and he replied with the move d5. Now, d5 is a playable move. I saw that this is still theory, so you can play it. But the move that is played now is just bishop on d3, but I decided to play knight on f3 instead, which is not the best because you actually allow your opponent to pin the knight, which is a bit annoying. Although this move is not even that good, because I still have c4, or I could also play h3, which is another really good move. I saw that, for example, I have the move h3, and if they don't take, they go on h5 and I can play g4. After that there is bishop on g6 and I have the move e6. Now e6 is a move that may happen sometimes in the Caro-Kann. And yeah, that's a sort of a wild Caro-Kann, but I didn't really know that I could do this. So going back, instead of doing that, I just decided to play bishop on e2. Simply unpinning the knight. So it's clear that my opponent will sometimes play this opening, but it actually was a huge surprise for me and I'm not playing the best moves because I'm basically trying to be solid. He's a national master, so I'm really scared by the fact that he could know some trick in this position, so I'm trying to be pretty solid and have no problems. And he decided to play e6. Now I castled and he played c5. And that's a really well position because as you can see, my opponent has a French structure, but the bishop is outside. And actually, I found out that this opening, if we go back, is actually a Caro-Kann, but you waste the time. Basically, black loses the time. Now we are following the advanced variation of the Caro-Kann. As you can see, they play this and we play bishop on e2, which is the most played move. At this point, they might play c5, but let's say that in this position black plays bishop on g4, wasting the time for no reason. I castle, and then he play this. As you can see, if I go back to the position we played, that's the exact same position. So it's basically a Caro-Kann where black wastes a time. Obviously still playable, is not lost. But you need to know that in this position, you can play c4. Now, I thought I could play c4, since this is pretty similar to a Caro-Kann. I could also play bishop on e3. But my mistake during this game was playing too solid because I was scared about the fact that this was a line that I didn't know. That's why it's really important to know your theory, so when you play, you can play some moves and be sure that you're not going to get destroyed. Yeah, obviously I should have played more actively and play c4. I play c3, which is more solid. Obviously this doesn't lose, but this loses my advantage, which is obviously not a great thing for me. And he played knight on c6. At this point, I played bishop on e3. Again, I could have played bishop on e3 before. The bishop e3 line is always a pretty good line. I also have h3 ideas, by the way. And playing bishop on e3, I'm just putting a lot of pressure on this pawn, so it can't be bad. He played queen on b6, which he says is inaccurate, although, I mean, I think it's pretty logical. And the point is that you put pressure on this pawn, but you are also putting pressure on b2. Usually, I will play knight on c3, but since I played c3, and I can't play for activity, I need to defend this pawn, at least in my mind, so I decided to play queen on b3. Now, queen on b3 is not accurate. Queen on b3 is a mistake, because Stockfish is suggesting to take, and after this trade, my scatter is damaged, and is basically saying that after black take, as you can see, I'm going to be worse in the endgame, which is true. Probably is not lost. I mean, right now is not lost, it's just minus 0.7, but you need to be pretty careful. So yeah, that was a mistake. Although I felt like I was under some pressure, I didn't know what to do, so trading queens in my mind was a good thing to do. My opponent probably agreed with me and played c4. Now, c4 is not a great move. And it's not because of the fact that I can take and basically do the same. Because let's say I take. That's not the same, because I can't really take these pawns and damage his scatter even more. So he has the move b5, he also has the move b4 in the future, so I might help him taking the queen. So instead of doing that, what my opponent missed, I believe, is that I can just play queen on c2. And what is the point? Because it looks like that I just wasted time playing queen on b3 before. But no, it's not true, because after my opponent played c4, now there is no pressure on this pawn, so I can move the queen and try to target this pawn in the future. So there is a change in the position and I can change plans, and I actually got an advantage from this move. So queen on b3 invited this push, which was a bad move. He decided to withdraw the bishop, playing bishop on f5, attacking the queen. And now, again, this pawn is under attack, so the only playable move is basically queen on c1. Now, he says I could also play queen on d2. Although I felt like this was more precise, because you leave the square for the knight, so I can develop more pieces. Otherwise, if I just play queen on d2, I mean, it's not easy to develop this knight, so yeah, that made sense. He's just playing to develop now, obviously it's a good thing, and now I'm doing the same. And I also have the idea of playing b3, then to undermine his scatter and gain an advantage somehow. And as you can see, white is better because I have the move b3, and not only that, the queen is misplaced, and there is a great tactic, which is knight take on c4, which I didn't play. I was looking for this, but I just missed the fact that after this I can push, and the queen is under attack and the knight is under attack too. I was like, okay, I sack the knight and what? Well, the point is that after this you can't move the knight because the queen is under attack, and that's what I missed basically. And yeah, the move now will be to just defend this, and after I take, queen take, with trade pieces, and my position is pretty good. Although instead of playing that, since I didn't see this move, I just decided to play b3. b3 is a miss, because I had the chance to win a pawn, although white is still better because, as I said, b3 is still a good move, trying to undermine the center, and if you take, as my opponent did, which is the best move obviously, you can't allow me to take, because otherwise I'm just going to win a pawn in the future. There is too much pressure on c4. But after this happened, the position opens up for my rook. I have b4 ideas maybe. I can withdraw the knight in the future and try to do some funny stuff. He played g5. Now g5 is not a pawn blunder. g5 is actually clever, although I felt like this wasn't enough Because, okay, you are attacking me on the king side, but as you see, his powerful piece and also a rook and a knight are on the queen side. While a lot of my pieces are in the center and in the king side, so okay, you are pushing this pawn, but it's not going to do a lot. And I was right. Now, I could take the pawn, at least that's what Stockfish is saying, but after I take, let's say, bishop take, and take, there is a discovery attack. You can take this pawn, pressure on the bishop. I can't take because otherwise I just lose the queen. And I don't know, I felt like I was losing. Apparently I wasn't, because I just have bishop on d1. He has to waste the time going back. So yeah, this actually wasn't really clever by him. Although I was scared about taking the pawn, and instead of doing that, I decided to play queen on b2. The point of queen on b2 is that now you don't have this discovery attack, so I can just win the pawn. Your pawn is just hanging, so he decided to play g4, attacking the knight. And I saw this move, and instead of playing knight on g5, which by the way, I think it just blunders a knight playing this. Can you just play this? No, I can go on e4. And if take, there is still the static, which, yeah, I didn't see. But yeah, this wasn't the best move. Instead of doing that, I decided to play knight on e1. So I saw this, and I thought knight on e1 was actually really good. And the point is that, at least in my mind, this bishop was really annoying. He's controlling a lot of squares, although I had to say there is nothing on these squares. But I felt like it was pretty annoying. So the point of knight on e1 is playing bishop on d3, and after with 8 pieces, I have a good knight on d3. That was the point. Also, I have ideas of f3, maybe. Then to open the position and put pressure on the f7 pawn. He decided to play h5, which is okay. Again, I'm not really scared. As you see, I have a ton of pieces on the center and on the king side. He's not attacking with a lot, so you shouldn't really be scared about this. Like, probably many of you guys will play g3, but g3 just create a weakness for me. Because now this pawn is closer, you can take, but if I just don't move pieces, he has to waste a lot of times, and he doesn't really have an attack, to be fair. So instead of doing that, I just played bishop on d3, again following my plan. This wasn't the best move. Apparently I had b4 because I want to stop a5. To be fair, I wasn't too scared about a5. Another good move will be just playing knight on d3. I think with the idea of playing b4 and knight on c5, which is fair enough, although this bishop is pretty bad, so I felt like trading it would have been a good move. And after that, you see that I have a knight on d3, which is pretty good, and now there is again the idea of b4 and knight on c5. So I felt like I did something good at least. He is trying to develop his knight somehow, so this maneuver makes sense. By the way, I'm not scared about losing this bishop, because as you can see, this bishop is just terrible. So let's say he plays knight on f5 and take the bishop. I'm just going to take with the pawn. I open the file for the rook. So he actually doesn't want to take the bishop, to be fair, because he is pretty bad. Although if I just take the knight, there is a rook take, and I just help him develop pieces, so it doesn't make any sense. Instead of doing that, I just played c4. The point of c4 is that I am trying to be tactical, complicate the position, and I'm trying to open the position. The fact is that he still has the king in the center, so if I open the position, I have a nice chance to win or to create some really good bet. Obviously, you cannot take, because if you take, there is d5. Everything is hanging. I can find a way to win. I mean, I have a lot of ideas. It's clear that this knight is hanging, but I don't think it's enough. In fact, it's +3. Let's say you play queen on b5, which is the best move. Yeah, there is just knight takes on c4. This is still hanging. And let's say you take these. I have knight on d6. Bishop take, take. And the rook folds. So that's pretty much over. I mean, you had to move the rook, I believe. Or just playing d4, but then there are ideas of attacking your king. As you can see, if you have the king in the middle, you're going to have a lot of problems. So opening the position was a smart move by me. So instead of taking, because obviously it is a bad move, he decided to reroute the knight in order to put pressure on this pawn and on the bishop, which makes sense. Now this pawn is actually hanging. And I could push. But I felt like this was the wrong decision. For the fact that his king is in the middle. I want to open things up. And that's the right thing to do. In fact, the best move is just taking, the move that I played. So I decided to take. Now, what if you take this pawn? Because my opponent didn't play this. Yeah, you have d6, in fact. So yeah. Instead of doing that, he just decided to take this way. And now I played knight on f4. The point is that this pawn is hanging. But if you take, I can take this pawn, attacking your queen and the bishop. So, I mean, if you take, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. Also because after you take, the knight is pinned. He played rook on d8, defending the pawn. And now I play d6. Then to be tactical and keep opening things. Now, this wasn't the best move. The best move was playing rook on a4. Rook on a4, still defending the pawn. And maybe after that I could play e6. I thought playing e6 right away was a really good move. It's not terrible, but actually you can take the pawn. And the point is that after I take and king take, okay, you can't castle, but your king is kinda safe and I'm down a pawn, so I need to play really precisely. Also, you might have in the future some ideas of giving me a check that could be annoying. So this knight is pinned, but I can't really put a lot of pressure on it. I played rook on e1. The point is that I want to put pressure on the open file. Obviously, that move makes sense. And at this point, I am supposed to play queen on b1. Whatever that does. This position is quite complicated, I have to say, because there are discoveries everywhere. And I mean, if I play, for example, king on h1, I mean, I lose because he still has discoveries of any kind, as you can see. So I really need to move the queen. And I played queen on a3. Now, queen on a3 is the first blunder of the game. The point of queen on b3 is that I'm putting pressure on this pawn and I'm also unpinning. Also, if you play knight on c2, thinking you are forking everywhere, well, first of all, I can just take the queen, and after you take my queen, I can take the rook, and I'm up a ton of material. So, instead of doing that, the thing I kinda missed, I mean, I didn't really miss that, but I didn't know what to do, to be fair. I didn't see queen on b1. So, you can just take the bishop, and after you take the bishop, obviously, there isn't the attack on the queen. So, after I take, and I decided to take with the rook, you have this really good fork. And after I take, obviously the queen is hanging, so you need to be a bit careful. If you just take the rook, or this rook too, you lose. But after you take my queen, and I take, you can take a rook. And now you are up an exchange. This is not losing. I mean, I'm worst. I'm definitely worst. But after all this happened, as you can see, my opponent has 3 pawns, I have 4 pawns, so I'm up a pawn but I'm down in exchange. Also, these knights are pretty good, and my king, I would argue, is a bit safer than his. This rook is quite good, I would say. I have a pass pawn, so I'm worst. I'm definitely worst, but I'm not lost. So he played rook on h6, which is a mistake. Because Stockfish wants to trade everything. I had to say that trading everything in this position would be quite clever. Because knights are slow pieces. A knight against a rook doesn't stand any chance. So let's say you manage to trade this rook. You trade this bishop for one of my knights. I have a pass pawn. Doesn't matter. I lose because one knight against one rook. It's over. The knight is too slow. He's too slow. There is no way he can fight against the rook. I played knight on f1, and the point is that, I mean, my knight can't really move. So I just want to live without it, and if I can reach the f5 square, as you can see, I have a lot of threats, although in the meanwhile, my opponent can do a lot of stuff, and as you can see, knights are really slow pieces. So yeah, he pushed the pawn, and I basically have to take it. If I play e4, he's going to have a pass pawn, and that's not really clever by me. So I decided to play this, and now I play g3 defending the knight. The point is that I don't want to move this knight, because it's actually pretty good. In this position, I mean, I feel like this knight has already a really good square, so there is no point of moving it. And now I want to bring the king in the center and try to develop this knight and keep putting pressure on the bishop. He played rook on d1, pinning me, but I just have king on f2. So to be fair, this move wasn't that good. You just allow me to get closer to the center. You're not really attacking this knight, so that didn't really make a lot of sense. In my opinion, you should have tried to unpin, or at least add one defender on this bishop. But let's say you play instead of that. What if I go for this, for example? What is the problem? Yeah. This is probably better. Now I'm unpinning, I can move the bishop and I can use my rook. The difference is that now, I mean, I still have this annoying pressure on the bishop, which is not a great thing. Let's say you move this rook, I have the idea of knight on d5. You can still defend, but it's getting trickier. Let's say I played king on e2, attacking the rook. And the point is that moving the queen by just one square, I'm supporting this square. I can play knight on d2. And if he pins me, I should be defended. So I moved the rook, and now I played knight on d2. Apparently, this move was really bad, and knight on e3, or knight on d5, that was the game. Now, I thought about knight on d5, but you have this defense. Rook on e6 with check 2. Now, I can play this move. You can't take this pawn because it's defended. My plan could be just to move and keep putting pressure on the bishop, although after you play king on f8, the move I saw, what are you even supposed to do? Oh, you have this. Oh, you have this and I win. The ease change back after this happened. Okay, I totally missed that, to be fair. I totally missed that. But yeah, I had a winning chance. But instead of doing that, after my opponent played this, I just decided to play knight on d2. And after that, he played rook on h1, which is the best move, apparently. Although I wouldn't really say that, because I have the move knight on f1. Now, he's saying he's inaccurate. And I would say to Stockfish, say whatever you want, but this rook is in jail. Like, he's not wrapped. There is no way I have time to do this. He has other pieces, obviously. But this rook can't move. With the knight, I'm completely blocking your rook. So it's like having a rook, or I have a knight and you have the knight. You know what I'm saying? This rook is basically equals to a knight in this position. My opponent didn't know what to do. A really good move I thought was playing rook on c2. Just taking control of this. Maybe you could also, after I play this, let's say I play king on d3. What if you take? Well, then I have a pass pawn, is not that easy. Although, I mean, at least you're sure you're not getting mated or something else. Obviously, you can't take the knight because the rook is hanging. But instead of doing that, my opponent played rook on f6. Now, Stockfish is saying this move is a mistake, but I think it's because he can't calculate too far. But in reality, this is a losing blunder, because in this position I played rook, take, the bishop on e7. I am sacking the rook, and after king take, I have a fork. Now, that move wasn't brilliant for this reason. It's brilliant because if you see, after everything happened, I still down an exchange. So why is this move so good? It's brilliant because if you do all of these, you have to see that in this position, the rook is in jail. the rook is trapped, can't go anywhere. And the point is that my king can reach the rook and I can win it. You can sack the rook for the knight, as it happened in the game. But after that, you also have to see that this king is closer to these pawns. And why is closer? Because this king has to win the pawn. Because I'm going to make a queen. Like, if you go this way, I'm going to push. You can't keep doing this because I'm going to make a queen. So you really need to win the pawn. In fact, in this position, my opponent played king on d4. And the point is that, in the meanwhile, that you are trying to win this pawn, I'm going to win your pawns. And that's over. All that variation with the sacrifice of the rook was a winning and basically forced line for me. My opponent obviously won the pawn. I reached his pawns. I won all of his pawns. And in this position, he resigned. Now, if you are a complete beginner and don't know how to win in this position, well, it's pretty simple. The king is on the g file. So it's kinda pointless to move it once again and push this pawn. This pawn is free to go, so I will just focus on making a queen with the h pawn. So let's say your opponent is trying to get in there and trying to gain some space and win your pawns. Now we can shield our pawns with the king. As you can see, there is the opposition between the two kings. White has the opposition, which means that black has to play now. And we keep doing this till we actually reach the g7 square. Because if they do this, they can't really get in there anyway. So the king is already well placed there. And we can keep pushing this pawn and make a queen. So let's say that our opponent, instead of doing that, just goes back. We can play h4 and no one is going to stop this pawn, as you can see. The king is shielding, is making a path for this pawn and there is no way you can stop it. Let's say you play this, now it's defended. Okay, you can win this pawn, but I'm going to make a queen and obviously it's over. So that's how I beat a National Master again. I hope this video was helpful and you learned something. And see you with the next video.